The church bells were already ringing when Claire Bennett's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She stood in the bridal suite, dressed in ivory lace, the veil pinned perfectly, the bouquet trembling in her hands. Outside, 200 guests waited. The air was thick with perfume, roses, and expectation. Everyone was here to see her marry Daniel Whitmore, heir to one of the wealthiest families in New York. But Claire couldn't breathe. Her reflection stared back at her in the mirror. Flawless makeup, designer gown, everything she was supposed to be. Yet behind the painted smile, her eyes screamed one word: trapped. Her chest tightened as if the corset wasn't just fabric, but chains. Her best friend S words from weeks ago rang in her ears. Are you marrying him because you love him, or because you are afraid to say no? The knock on the door jolted her. Claire? 5 minutes. It was Daniel's mother, her voice clipped and cold. Claire's fingers dug into the bouquet stems. 5 minutes to sign her life away. She glanced at the window. The street below buzzed with honking cars and flashing lights, and in that instant, something inside her snapped. She wasn't going to walk down that aisle. Without another thought, Claire grabbed the skirt of her gown, lifted it high enough to run, and bolted. Through the back stairwell, down the hallway, out the emergency exit, her heels clattering against the pavement until she ripped them off and sprinted barefoot into the street. The city swallowed her whole. Taxis rushed past, horns blared, and then, as if fate itself intervened, a yellow cab screeched to a halt beside her. The driver leaned over, confusion etched across his face. He was in his 30s, dark hair slightly tousled, sharp jawline softened by kind brown eyes. You need a ride? He asked. Claire yanked the door open and tumbled inside, veil and all. Drive, please. Anywhere but here. The driver blinked, taking in the sight of the runaway bride in his back seat. For a second, he thought it was a prank. Then he saw the tears streaking her face. Buckle up, he said quietly, and pulled into traffic. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments. Have you ever made a choice that shocked everyone around you but saved your own heart? And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional love stories like this one. The cab weaved through traffic, the city flashing by in blurs of neon and gray. Claire's chest heaved as she pressed her palms to her face. Rough day? The driver asked gently. She let out a laugh, sharp, broken. You could say that. I just left my wedding. He whistled low. That's not something I hear every shift. Most people just forget their wallets. Claire lowered her hands. I couldn't do it. I couldn't marry him. Everyone wanted me to, but... Her throat tightened. It wasn't love. Not the kind that matters. The driver's eyes flicked to her in the rearview mirror. Good. You don't owe anyone your life just to keep up appearances. His words cut through her panic like a balm. No judgment, no scolding, just truth. For the first time that day, Claire breathed. What's your name? She asked. Ethan, he said simply. And you? She hesitated, then smiled faintly. Claire, but tonight, I guess I'm just a runaway. They drove in silence for a while, the hum of the engine steady, grounding. Ethan didn't pepper her with questions. He didn't try to pry. He just drove, giving her space to fall apart quietly. Finally, he asked, Where do you want to go? Claire looked out the window at the blur of strangers, their lives so far removed from hers. For the first time, she had no plan, no script, no one telling her what came next. Somewhere no one will find me, she whispered. Ethan nodded. He understood that kind of escape. He'd been driving cabs for years, and every night people climbed in running from something. Bad dates, broken marriages, empty apartments. But this woman, she wasn't just running from a wedding, she was running for her soul. He drove her to a small diner tucked away on the edge of the city. The neon sign flickered, casting a soft pink glow on the rain-slicked street. Best coffee in Manhattan, he said. No one will think to look for you here? Claire hesitated, then followed him inside. The bell above the door jingled, and the smell of pancakes and bacon wrapped around her like a blanket. A waitress raised her brows at Claire's dress, but said nothing. They slid into a booth. Ethan ordered 2 coffees. Claire wrapped her trembling hands around the warm mug, letting the heat seep in. Thank you, she said softly. Ethan shrugged. Everyone deserves a safe place to land. Her throat caught. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not Daniel, not his family, Not even her own parents. They all cared about image, status, perfection. Ethan, this stranger, saw her. And for the first time, Claire wondered if maybe she hadn't lost everything tonight. Maybe she had just found the beginning. Claire sat in the diner booth, still clutching the coffee like it was her lifeline. The neon lights outside painted her gown in hues of pink and blue, making her look less like a runaway bride and more like a lost dreamer. Ethan stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, watching her from across the booth. He'd given rides to hundreds of people, maybe thousands, but never had someone unsettled him like this. It wasn't just the drama of her running from a wedding. It was the honesty in her eyes, the way she looked at the world as if she was seeing it for the first time. "You don't regret it, do you?" Ethan asked. Claire blinked. "Regret?" "Running." He leaned back against the seat. "Most people in your shoes would be thinking about the gossip, the money, the family fallout, but you don't look like someone who's regretting." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "That's the first time anyone's ever given me permission not to regret." Ethan's brows furrowed, but he didn't push. Instead, he let her sit with her thoughts. Claire gazed out the diner window. "My parents wanted the match. His family wanted the publicity. It was like no one cared whether I wanted it." Her fingers tightened on the mug. "When I stood there in that gown, I felt like I was disappearing. Like if I said I do, Claire Bennett would cease to exist, and only Daniel Whitmore's wife would remain." Her words struck something deep inside Ethan. He thought of the years he'd spent working double shifts, putting his own dreams on hold after his father passed. He thought of his mother, who told him to be practical when he wanted to study music. He thought of how easy it was to lose yourself in other people's expectations. "You did the bravest thing," Ethan said softly. Claire laughed bitterly. "Everyone else will call it cowardice." "They're wrong." His tone was firm, steady. "It takes guts to walk away from a life that isn't yours, especially when everyone else wants you to play along." Her eyes glistened. She didn't know why, but his words felt like a balm to wounds she hadn't even admitted existed. The waitress came by, dropping off 2 plates of pancakes. Claire stared at them, then laughed again. A real laugh this time. "I was supposed to have a 6-course gourmet meal tonight. Instead, I'm eating diner pancakes in a wedding dress. And it suits you better," Ethan said. She lifted her gaze to him. For the first time, she noticed the quiet strength in his features, the way his eyes held hers without judgment, the way he seemed completely at ease in his own skin. "Why are you so kind to me?" she asked. He shrugged. "Because once, someone was kind to me when I least deserved it. And it changed everything." Claire tilted her head. "What happened?" Ethan hesitated. Then, as if her presence made it safe to share, he began. "I wasn't always a cab driver," he said. "I studied architecture in college. I had big dreams, designing buildings, traveling the world. But life, it doesn't always go as planned. My dad died suddenly, and my mom was drowning in medical bills. So I dropped everything, took the first job I could get, and started driving. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept us afloat." Claire listened intently, her heart tightening. "One night," Ethan continued, "I was driving a woman home from the hospital. She'd just lost her husband. I barely said a word the whole ride, but when we got to her place, she grabbed my hand and said, 'You may not realize it, but you just saved me.' For 30 minutes, I didn't feel alone." He looked down at his coffee. "That's when I realized, sometimes we save each other in the smallest ways." Silence lingered between them, heavy and meaningful. Claire reached across the table, touching his hand lightly. "Then maybe tonight, you saved me too." His breath caught. He didn't reply, but his hand didn't move away. The bell above the diner door jingled, and Claire's stomach dropped. She instinctively ducked, her veil falling forward. 2 men in dark suits walked in, scanning the diner. Daniel's security. Her pulse raced. Ethan noticed immediately. "Friends of yours?" "Not exactly," she whispered. "They're looking for me." He didn't hesitate. Sliding out of the booth, he pulled her up with him. "Come on." They slipped out the back door into the alley, the cold night air sharp against her skin. Claire clutched her skirts, her heart thundering. Ethan guided her quickly toward the cab parked around the corner. As they climbed in, Claire's laugh bubbled up again, breathless, tinged with adrenaline. I can't believe this. I'm a runaway bride hiding in alleys like I'm in some action movie. Ethan grinned as he started the engine. Then let's make it a good one. They sped off, leaving the men behind. For the first time all night, Claire didn't feel afraid. She felt alive. Ethan drove without asking, letting the city unravel like a ribbon of lights. Claire's veil fluttered out the window, a ghost of the life she'd left behind. Do you want to keep running? He asked gently. Or choose where you land? For once, she whispered. I want to choose. By the East River, she slipped off her ring, its glitter too heavy for her hand. Daniel's not cruel, she said, but with him I was a portrait, not a person. She dropped the phone, buzzing with pleas and promises. Then, with Ethan's quiet help, shed the gown for jeans and a sweater from a thrift store. When she emerged, she was smaller in fabric, but larger in truth. At dawn, she returned the ring. You're a good man, Daniel, but not my man. I can't keep living as a picture in a frame. She walked away before anyone could pull her back. Breakfast with Ethan tasted like freedom. Coffee strong, pancakes messy, stories flowing. She confessed the sketches she'd hidden. He admitted the buildings he'd never built. They bought notebooks that morning, sat in a park, and began. Weeks turned into new lives. Claire filled sketchbooks, sold her first prints under the name Runaway Lines. Ethan drove cabs but studied drafting at night. On Fridays, they wandered the city together, gathering small miracles. The night her first gallery show opened, Claire stood at the window, smiling like someone who had finally come home to herself. Ethan, steady as ever, slipped his hand into hers. Love hadn't come in a gown or an altar. It had come in a taxi, a thrift store, a diner at dawn. It had come in freedom, in honesty, in the courage to choose. Sometimes love isn't the aisle you walk. It's the road you dare to run.